So this morphed into something that took place amongst the fan base of Donald Trump. You know, the fan base?
Quick question.
Sure.
Quick question. Mr. Hare, we all know that this was incorrect. And we know that Mr. Trump spent time inciting people, building them up, getting them, rallying behind what he was trying to do. With the media, don't they have, or shouldn't they have, a part to play in this? Now, as I said earlier, and as we speak about often, the media has a lot of power. When you utilize that power, and it seems almost as if this is going towards something negative, it seems like they should be charged also.
See, the thing with the media is they never actually support a particular position. But what they do is they talk about things as if they are normal when they're not normal. They talk about things that are criminal as if they're differences of opinion. And that's the problem with the media. Now, I realize that they're always on a thin line, you don't want to get liable, be accused of libel because you said something that you couldn't back up. You asserted it as if it was true, and you didn't have anything to back it up or anything concrete to back it up. Mm-hmm. So I get that. But when people are rallying in Ferguson, Missouri, holding up great big signs saying, Donald Trump won and so on. And you talk about it as, there's a large portion of the public, that feels that, Donald Trump didn't lose the election. They feel that Donald Trump actually won the election. Yeah. They talk about it like that. Yeah. That gives it legitimacy.
It's almost like you're in the schoolyard, and you got two kids that are about to go at it. And then you have this instigator in the middle. And this instigator, he said this, and it just keeps the ball rolling.
Right. And that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
They keep instigating by not saying things that are true and then saying things in a waffly way that don't convey the actual truth, behind those things. Right. The core point that should have been made every time Donald Trump and his fan base ran their mouth is that there were 61 lawsuits filed by Donald Trump and his fans challenging the election results in something like 32, 34 states. Every one of those lawsuits failed. Every one. Yeah. And they didn't fail because there was just a little bit of difference between one person's proof and another person's proof. They failed miserably. And most of the lawsuits, they were just thrown out because there was no actual evidence brought before the court to base the assertion that the election was stolen on, right? So you had some places like in Georgia where there were 3 physical hand counts. This is a state that has a computer-based voting system. You vote by computer like we do in New York State. But, in New York State, you pencil in on a ballot what your choices are. Then the computer reads what you penciled in and they count, your choices. That's the way it's done in most states. In Georgia, they not only did that as their first cut of counting the votes, but then because people were whining, they recounted the votes 3 times by hand. That's not counting 2 other audits of just specific counties in Georgia that they recounted the votes by hand again in those counties. So there was absolutely no substantive representation of fraud anywhere in the country. And in most cases where they found those little incidences of fraud where somebody voted for his wife. His wife had died in, say, April, of 2020. And this guy voted for her anyway. You had some instances like that. In most cases where that occurred, it was a Republican voting for extra Republicans. Voted for people that were dead, voting for people that no longer lived in the county, and so on. It was Republicans engaging in, vote harvesting, and so on, right? And yet they're the ones complaining that the election was insecure, and that we need to have all of these provisions established to make the elections more secure, when they were the ones who were creating the insecurity in the first place.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's ugly. Yeah. So over the course of November 3rd through January 21st, a meme began. You know what a meme is, right? Like a sort of a slogan or an idea that gets, trumped up by people, and now they keep repeating it over and over and over again. Well, this began to happen around this fan base of Trump. They started talking about, we will stop the steal, stop the steal, stop the steal. And then that became a mantra where you had people that were rallying around the country around the idea of stopping the steal. This was Trump's echo that he took. He took this on as, sort of a framework that he adopted from his own supporters.
Right.
So it soon gathered space on social media, and it led to rallies all across the United States. Then he started saying things like, we will never give up. We will never concede.
Wow.
It doesn't happen. So this is Donald Trump refusing to allow the transition of power from his administration to the Biden administration.
Right.
Let me just help us understand the consequences of this. Trump had signed a treaty. We talked about this a few times. Signed a treaty with the Taliban in Afghanistan. That treaty said that by May 1 of 2021, the United States would leave Afghanistan. All their military forces would leave Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And from then on, nobody gets to walk around Afghanistan unless the Taliban said it was okay.
Right.
That was the deal.
Right.
Donald Trump signed that deal. Then he loses the election.
Oh, wow.
But what he did all the way up to the election was he kept hold of all of the information, all of the stuff that was the basis for the treaty between the United States and the Taliban. So by the time the Biden people were able to get access to the information, you only had about 2 weeks before the transition, right? So all this blaming of Joe Biden for lack of preparation for the evacuation of people from Afghanistan.
Right, it was purposely done.
It was done by Trump's people. If they had begun the transition, within a week or two after the November 3rd election, you would have had 10 or 12 weeks to be able to understand what Trump did, who committed what to who, so that you would know what you were talking about when you started engaging with the Taliban. You could have started engaging with the Taliban before January 21.
Yeah, right.
And set everything in motion. Biden tried to do that. He did as best as he could. He got the transition date to go from May 1 to September 1. But you had a lot of things that should have been taken care of during that transition period that weren't. Trump sat on the information because he refused to concede the election. He sat on all that information that every other transitioning administration told you about 2.5 months before the transition.
Quick question. Let me just ask. A lot of the stuff that went on, or the paperwork that was kept at Mar-a-Lago's, could have been a part of that in those boxes.
Well, the Mar-a-Lago issue is a somewhat different issue, because you don't even know what of that information you as the Biden administration needed for you to be able to understand how to set up your policies for your administration. The problem is you didn't know what you didn't know because Trump kept the information.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what you don't know, how can you plan for what you don't know that you don't know?
Well, that's what I'm asking about this particular situation. I figure he, a lot of that stuff could have been stuff that he kept, or things that he may have promised, or a different.
And I believe exactly what you're saying.
And that's why he was keeping, a lot of these, this,
he could have done it because he didn't want you all to know, not you all, us, as the American public, didn't want us to know what decisions he had made.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe he was doing things that if the American public saw what he was doing, they would not have liked it.
Exactly.
Maybe they would have said, wait a minute, player, you can't do that. We told these people in Afghanistan that women could go to school. Now, all of a sudden, women can't go to school.
Yeah.
You told women in Afghanistan that they could walk around without a shawl on their head. Right. Now they got to have a shawl on their head.
Right.
You told them that they could walk around with their face exposed. Now they got to have their face covered up. You said they could drive. Now they can't drive, right?
Right.
Now you can't leave the house unless you got a dude leaving the house with you, and so on, right? Yeah. Maybe the deal that was struck with the Taliban said that those things were not going to continue. That's not going to be what was going to take place under Taliban rule. But as soon as the Taliban got control of the country, they reinstated all of these crazy rules. I mean, they're crazy to me. I don't know what they think about it. I don't know what's so important about it.
To them, it's normal. They look at Americans, and I've heard reference, like they see same-self marriage. They said, I've heard some of them say, America is corrupt. America is going to hell. I've heard them say that.
And they may
personally.
be absolutely right about that, but that doesn't mean that the Taliban ain't going to hell. In fact, when we get to hell, guess who we're going to meet? them same Taliban, right? So Trump kept saying that he would never accept Biden's win. So remember what we said about what a rebellion actually is, what insurrection is. An insurrection is an act or instance of revolting against civil authority or established government. Rebellion is defined as an act of violent or open resistance to an established government or ruler. Joe Biden was the next ruler of the United States. And what Donald Trump said, quoting him, he says, "We will never give up. We will never accept Mr. Biden's win. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore." Lying through his teeth. But setting the lying aside, the mere fact that you are saying that is saying that you are in rebellion against the United States. If you are in rebellion against the United States, the 14th Amendment, Section 3 says you cannot hold an office of the United States, period. You would have to get 2/3 of the House of Representatives and 2/3 of the House of the Senate to vote to allow you to hold an office in the future.
Hey, Norm, what was that movie we were watching yesterday? It was about a president. What do you remember the name of it?
This is called The American President.
The American President. And what was brought up was he wanted to do some things, but he knew he had to stay within the Constitution, right?
Right.
Norm? He knew he had to stay in, and so that's what he did. He tried to stay, So I think that's what all presidents supposed to do.
This is what's going to trap Donald Trump. His own mouth said he made willful statements that in context encouraged and foreseeably resulted in lawless action at the Capitol. The fact that, and I know we're getting short on time here, the fact that...
Yeah, 2 more minutes.
Right. The fact that when the rebellion took place, you had Kevin McCarthy, who was a heinous, person himself, but Kevin McCarthy calls Donald Trump. Why? Because Kevin McCarthy is in the Capitol building, and the rioters are in the Capitol building, and he's trapped up someplace where he can't get out. So he's calling Donald Trump, Donnie, the rioters are in the hallway, they're tearing stuff up. They're saying they want to hang us. They got a gallows outside. This has gotten out of hand. Call them off.
Ooh.
And what did Donnie say? Well, maybe they care more about the election than you do. He said it in just that kind of tone.
Ooh.
I mean, he didn't say it like he was kidding or, he was going to follow it up, with, here's what I'm going to do. That was his assertion.
Mr. Hare, I know you're saying that. Do they have that on record that he said that?
It's on tape.
Wow.
And Kevin McCarthy repeated it. He actually testified. Right. Or I don't know if he testified to it, but he said it on air.
That's the indictment right there that should do him in.
Right, exactly. Okay.
Unbelievable.
So a Professor Epps, he's a, oh goodness, I forgot where he was a professor was. But anyway, I went to an analysis that he had done. It won't come to my mind now. I'm having these issues with skip brain, right? but anyway, what he said was that incitement, as far as incitement under the law, He said incitement is not a crime under the First Amendment. This is the peculiarity of American law.
Wow.
Incitement by itself is not a crime under the First Amendment. I knew you were going to say something about that, right? Unless the incitement meets a certain criteria.
Okay.
Here's the criteria. First, it has to be intended to cause violence, and you infer that intent from the circumstances. That it's also likely to cause violence. So if you tell people, all right, let's go, we're going to march over to the Capitol building and we're going to have to fight like hell, in order to keep power from me, as opposed to Joe Biden.
Well, hold up. Didn't he just prove that he got it on tape that McCarthy said, call off your dogs, and Trump said, well, I'm sorry, I
Trump
guess you don't care.
said that the rioters cared more about the election than Kevin McCarthy
Which
did.
says that's what we hear. We here to overtake because we feel like we should be in charge.
Professor Epps gives these couple of examples. He says, if I go downtown and I say to two drunks that are standing in front of the bank, let's rob this bank right now. That sounds insightful, doesn't it?
Kind of, yeah.
But it says, but I haven't really incited anybody because it's not very likely that they're going to rob the bank just because I walk up to them and said that.
Right.
It's almost, this is really in a way, it's kind of tricky because you have to be able to prove mindset, and you have to be able to.
And you use the right word. It's tricky.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you get trapped by the words you use in the law that you write. So if the words that you use are rebellion and insurrection, if there's any kind of waffly stuff, in those words, a person like Donald Trump can play to the waffle.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So the second example that Professor Epps gave was, he says, if I say let's meet here tomorrow and rip things up, he says, I'm not inciting, because in the words of the Supreme Court, where there is time for better counsel to prevail, the remedy for speech is more speech. See, so that's the assertion that they're making is, if there was time between when you did the inciting and the time that you actually rebelled, if there was time in between, you can't hold me to account for the rebellion because you had time to,
to quell it.
Level heads were supposed to, to take over and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that's the puzzlement that we're in right now. Trump is being charged with insurrection and rebellion, and facilitating and supporting insurrection and rebellion.
Now I'm getting a better understanding on how come they haven't just grabbed him and just you know what I mean, just taking him in and basically prosecuting him.
It's the nuances of American law.
Yeah.
We spent 2.5 years trying to prove something that your eyes already proved for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, guys. No. You just said on tape, to me, McCarthy said, call off the dogs, Trump. Trump said, well, you shouldn't be there. We trying to take over the government. Or basically, you don't care about the government as much as we do because we want to take it. Right there, to me, that's...
What Trump said was, if you would just shut down the certification process of the Electoral College votes, if you would just shut that down, we won't have a rebellion.
Wow.
I'll still be president. We'll work it out some other kind of way. Don't worry about it. Just do what I asked you to do.
Wow.
And McCarthy said, I can't do that. They'd shoot me if I did something like that. Well, you're supposed to be my henchman. If you get shot, you just get shot.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, McCarthy, Trump expected McCarthy to obey.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? He didn't expect McCarthy to honor the Constitution.
Right.
He expected McCarthy to obey.
Had he been wiggly and squiggly and obeyed, this whole thing, man, this really would have been terrible.
We would not be sitting in this room right now.
It would have been terrible,
All of this would have been disrupted. Just like in Ukraine, one day they woke up and the Russians had bombs flying all around, in their cities and whatnot.
Yeah.
So they went from happy days to here again, it's back to school, and so on. And all of a sudden, the world turned upside down. No longer, the nurses don't get to go to the hospitals and work.
So now I guess we can call McCarthy the hero of the insurrection.
No, we can't call him that.
Well, for that moment.
But if he had waffled, as you say, had he did that, Mr. Hare, we'd have been in dire straits now.
You got to give him that.
I mean, really,
we give him that, but the very next sentence is he still put us in the position that we're in right now with this ongoing rebellion in this country where people are walking around running their mouths saying that the election was stolen from Donald Trump based on fraud, and misconduct. And every single word of that is untrue. It's all untrue. Kevin McCarthy has facilitated that. Now you've got, I don't want to call people names. I have to sometimes hesitate when I speak. When Marjorie Taylor Greene gets up and says that I'm not going to vote for any money being spent to fund anything being done by this administration unless I get a vote for the impeachment of Joe Biden. If you don't vote to impeach Joe Biden, I won't allow a vote to occur on any money going forward. So now, the budget that the United States has right now ends September 30th. I talked about this earlier in the year. I told you this is going to be the problem. When they did that deal in April and May, and they worked out the little temporary, funding deal, I told you that was a problem. All they were doing was pushing out into the future. Remember, this is when they were having the issue about the debt ceiling? So they put this cap on spending for the debt ceiling.
Right.
But the cap allowed you to spend, significantly more than you had spent previously.
Oh, yeah.
So it accomplished what Joe Biden wanted to accomplish. The problem is that you put the decision about the funding of the budget for the year that begins October 1 of this year, goes to September 30th of next year. You push that out to now. So now you give Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and all of these people, Lauren Boebert, you give them all another bite at the apple, to disrupt the government of the United States. And that's what's going on right now, right? And of course, McCarthy could prevent all of that. McCarthy could just tell them, we're not going to do an impeachment vote because there's nothing to impeach this man about, unless you got some evidence of some kind of crime or misdemeanor that you say that Joe Biden did.
Well, he won't stand up. To be honest, he's like he's like a paper. He's
paper tiger.
Yeah, I mean he's just going along with whichever way the wind sways.
He just wants to be Speaker of the House.
Yeah. And
get whatever. I guess they give him another $8,000 in pay or something.
And then and on top of that, when you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, she is in her statements. She's probably about the most undemocratic person that I've ever even heard.
Absolutely.
She's there's no sway room with her.
She aligns herself with Donald Trump so that she can align herself with the person who she wants to have authority over all of the affairs of the United States. And her vision of the future is becoming second in command to him, so she could be the sort of the deputy wielder of authority over the United States. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Listen, Willie's got that pencil tapping and whatnot over there because we should have taken the break 6 minutes ago.
Yeah, 9 minutes ago.
Let's not exaggerate. Okay, so
9 minutes ago.
Please stick with us. We will see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. We're here with Norm MacArthur, who is the in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare.
And, of course, we're here with Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare. I want you guys to know we live on radio. Of course, you guys know we live on WBNY Facebook. But I also got us on TikTok live, too, behind the scenes camera. So check that out.
So we're going to see a lot of maneuvering going on. You know, people that are going to say that, well, everything I did under the authority of Donald Trump. He told me to do it, or he told me to do things that helped me to do what he told me to do, if that makes sense, right? And so it's covered under the immunity clause. You know, I was doing work on behalf of the president. That was federal work. So there's stuff that Fannie Willis is talking about in Georgia. It doesn't count. Just because I was physically in Georgia when I did it doesn't make it Georgia work. It's still federal work. And as federal work, you can't try me for stuff if the head of the federal agency that I was with authorized me to do it.
Right.
So I'm saying that everything that I did was all for Donald Trump. Now, there's an argument to be made there.
I'm trying to hear
right.
this here. When you say immunity, I'm you know what I mean?
Right. So the argument is rational in the sense that if you're operating under the authority of the President of the United States doing the work of the country, and somebody felt that something that you did was illegal in their state, you could then say under the immunity clause that governs the distinction between criminal prosecutions at the federal level and criminal prosecutions at the state level, you could assert immunity that you were covered under the cloak of the federal government's authority.
Well, Mr. Hare, you know, like I say, being Trump's henchmen or henchwomen, you know, all together, when it really boils down to it, we have to have a certain sense of integrity and knowing what right and wrong is. And you know, to even hold these particular offices, you know what it is.
We used to have that. But you lost it when you decided to elect Donald Trump.
Well, if we're not going on that, then I guess they could go under.
The reality is, you should have gone into rebellion in November of 2016. You should have gone into rebellion then.
No,
yeah,
I think everybody was.
That's really true.
I think our community was asleep at that time. We were
asleep at the switch.
Yeah.
See, now an attorney who was one of Donald Trump's attorneys, she is asserting that, I think her last name is Ellis. She is asserting that, Jenna Ellis. She's asserting that she's seeing signs in the communities that she travels in that there may be a bad tide coming Donald Trump's way. And here's what she says, now, and this makes some sense to me. She said, everybody's tired of politics, right? She says, but in her hour-and-a-half drive from her driveway to her rodeo parking lot, she obviously runs a place that does rodeos.
So she's in a Republican conservative
She's
crowd.
in a super Republican conservative place,
crowd,
right?
Definitely.
So every house she drives by, there's 49 Republicans, and they've got 3 bodies of Democrats.
Three bodies.
They buried along the way.
3 bodies. I like that.
They don't get to vote anymore. They're done, right?
Yeah.
And so in this 90-minute drive, she goes back and forth to her business.
Right.
She's driving through 3 counties and all these Republican, strongholds.
Right.
Here's what she says. She says there was a marked absence of Trump signs and Trump flags along the route that she goes.
That she's used to seeing.
She says that while that does not necessarily mean that people along that drive have stopped supporting Donald Trump, she says it must mean something.
It does.
Because there used to be signs all over the place, MAGA this, MAGA that,
Right.
all over the place.
They're not proud any longer.
She said she didn't see a single sign.
They're not proud any
None.
longer.
That's right. And so she said that what she sees is a critical swing in Florida that which had historically been drifting towards the GOP in recent election cycles, but remains closely divided between Democrats and Republicans. She says that she was very surprised not to see even one red hat or T-shirt or Trump flag at a NASCAR race that was going on. She went to witness or audience to a NASCAR race.
And that's conservative Republican.
They normally, not only do they have MAGA signs and red hats and whatnot, they normally have Ku Klux Klan signs, right? Grand Wizard signs.
That's what the insurrection.
Right. That was unfair. That's unfair. They don't have Grand Wizard signs. They don't have Ku Klux Klan signs.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry too.
I made that up.
Forgive me also, guys.
It feels like they have that, but I'm not saying that really is the truth. But the point is, according to her, she says she previously had posted that she attended a NASCAR race at Daytona Beach on August 26th, and that she saw very few MAGA signs or red.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, recently when I was on vacation, and I came back and I asked you, had the climate changed for Mr. Trump? Mm-hmm. See, when I was out of town, I watched the news, and even more so than I did.
You watched that foreign news from.
Well, it was. If
it's not from Buffalo, it's foreign news.
Okay, but what I am saying is, I saw a whole lot of fresh. Biden. People are going for Biden, and
the media keeps giving us the impression that Trump is like neck and neck, slightly ahead or slightly behind and whatnot. I don't believe a word of that the media is saying. I think they're saying that because they want to keep this competition going, because that keeps your eyes on the television and they sell advertising.
And when you really look at it, you know what I mean, to sit up and see, I don't know what the state of the world would be if we were to continue to follow Trump.
What did Trump give you? You had the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We talked about this on Wednesday.
Which wasn't even his, though.
Right? So you had the Trans-Pacific Partnership agreement that President Obama had struck, right?
Right.
Which made it something that Trump just couldn't go along with.
Yeah.
So they killed that deal. When they killed that deal, they killed the United States being able to be the principal driver of the trade relationships between the United States, Mexico, and the Pacific Rim countries on the eastern side of the Pacific.
Right.
Or the western side for us, it's the west for us, east for them, of the Pacific. So all of that stuff was lost because of Donald Trump. He created all of these tariffs. People don't know that when Trump created these tariffs, he made it seem like he was making American products more competitive by raising the price of the products with these tariffs. We gave the impression to the American public that the people that were selling us their foreign goods, they're the ones that had to pay those tariffs. But that's not true. If you put a tariff of 4% or 8% on some foreign product, that 4% or 8% or whatever it is paid for by you. You're the ultimate consumer to buy the stuff. You're the one paying the tariff.
Right.
Trump was hustling the American people. And then people started telling on him and said, "You're hustling us." And Trump said, "No, I'm not. I get credit for, improving the trade relationship because I made American goods cost more." But you made the American goods cost American people more. You didn't help us. You just helped you. That money went into the Treasury. So that was a way to raise taxes without telling people that you were raising taxes.
And without raising taxes for the rich, too. Am I correct?
Right. And without raising taxes on the poor. Because, in other words, if you're the one who is the ultimate payer of the excise taxes or the tariffs, you're the one who gets hurt. But if they don't raise these excise taxes or tariffs, you don't pay that additional money, so that helps you as well.
Right.
But everything helps rich people better because they got more money to protect.
Right.
Right. So this is the situation that we find ourselves in. Ellis had written in her Twitter account, she wrote that she had not recently seen any boats with Trump flags on them. I don't know, for those of you all that we have a harbor here, and we have like regattas, or whatever they call it, boats that are having like big parades with the boats and whatnot in the harbor. But we're not really a harbor city. We're not oriented that way, the way, say, Miami is, and so on. But in the places where she's going in Florida, these regattas are big deals. And of course, they got Trump signs all over the place. Trump made me more money. Trump let me not have to pay taxes. I love Donald Trump, and so on, right? She says that when she looks at those boats now, she don't see anything about Donald Trump. I only say that to say this was an omen.
Right.
That unless you see something else happening,
right,
there's a suggestion here that even if it doesn't mean that the support for Trump is the same, the enthusiasm for Trump has dissipated.
I look at it almost as if a whole lot of people who were very staunch Trump supporters are really, really kind of shying away now. Just due to the fact of some of the recent developments, things that are going on. So, the way it's looking to me, I think his base is kind of dissipating a little bit.
And it should be, right?
Yeah.
So they were doing a poll on how they felt about Trump being convicted of insurrection and so on. Where do people stand? And according to the poll, this poll was done.
Who was polled is the question.
Well, that's going to be in here, so I'll come to that in just a second.
Sorry, Mr.
But this was a poll published by Newsweek magazine, and Nick Martywanek. I don't know if you all can remember that name. We've read some articles by him before, but he said that Trump would be found guilty by a jury of his peers over his alleged crimes surrounding the 2020 election if a trial were held today. So the public, apparently, according to this poll, feels that Trump committed the crimes that he's being accused of.
Right.
And Emerson College survey in this was a survey of Washington, D.C. residents, which you, speaking for Donald Trump, said, well, those are those dark people. They're all criminals. They're all robbers. They're all horrid people. They're drug dealers. They're pimps. That's what Trump said. That's why he didn't want to have a jury picked from a voting public in Washington D.C.
Hey, Norm, can we share this story you told us about Trump, or you don't want to share that?
I wouldn't mind sharing it with his,
just as long as you don't swear. But go ahead.
I'll leave some details out. But check this out, folks. We left the show Monday, and I was saying something about Trump. I said, Trump may not be a racist. And my man Norm here spent some hours with Trump.
He didn't hit you on the head?
Spent some hours. And there was some, I think, some sports figures there also.
Yes, sir.
My man Norm, right here. Military.
Who was so famous that he was running around with Donald Trump in the first place.
Right.
Sitting up here in the studio with us.
Right.
He been running around with Donald Trump.
He actually, Trump spoke to him. They was talking. So some sports figures was there, guys. And with my man Norm and Trump and his wife too, right? His wife also.
Marlon Maples at the time.
Right. And the sports guys was they liked Norm. And they was going to throw him some $100. They was about to give him $100. A tip. And Trump said, no, I got it. And Trump gave him 20.
Right. He went
what does that let you know?
He went from a fistful of $100 bills to one $20 bill.
Meaning that's a Negro,
That's,
give him a little something.
We're not giving you any more than that.
Right. That tells you right there what he thinks. And so I was convinced. You're right, Norm. He's a racist.
I knew it a long time ago, and he really, really. But as I say, back then, this is when he was a businessman and he was
Same
was,
guy, same guy.
but the same guy, but still his persona.
The record shows he was a racist businessman.
As I say, his persona
he's been
told
the
me
same racist all the time.
Told me that way back when.
Right. So the Emerson College survey found that 64% of the respondents, these are surveys of voters in Washington, D.C., 64% of the respondents said that they would have found Donald Trump guilty of trying to subvert the election results. Special Counsel Jack Smith has obviously helmed this investigation, alleging within the indictment that Trump and his allies attempted to exploit the violence and chaos at the Capitol by calling lawmakers to convince them to delay the certification of the 2020 election. Now, we've been talking about this all the time, right? What was the real thing that Trump is being accused of? What was the mechanism that he was trying to unfold? The mechanism was, if all the other things that he had done failed, the fake electors, the throwing out of election results in particular counties like Fulton, because they had too many black people in the voting public, in Fulton or in Detroit, and so on. If all those tricks that Trump had tried to pull failed, his one last trick was, well, let's just not certify the Electoral College votes at all. Let's say that there was a problem. There were 2 sets of Electoral College slates, given for Michigan. 2 different slates were given for Georgia. Or let's just say that there's so much confusion, we need to send the votes back to the states and let the state legislatures decide who the Electoral College representatives should be for that state, and then go forward from there. Trump was trying to find a way to delay until he could find a configuration where he could get enough Republicans in control of a particular point of a vote that the Republicans would vote to support whatever Donald Trump was trying to put down. That's really what the deal is here, right? And this is the core of what I talked about on Monday, that I'm trying to help us as Americans understand. What Trump and his players are doing is eroding the very infrastructure of democracy that makes us have a democratic republic in the first place. They're using their majorities in different, county legislatures and different electoral election boards, their majorities in state legislatures, and they're using their majorities to change the rules so that in future elections or in future processes, they wind up being able to put their people in place and to have the votes that they want. So that's why you can have in Alabama, which has an extraordinarily horrid history on race, to have Alabama create congressional, I think 7 congressional districts, and they only have a majority black congressional district in Alabama.
Split everything up.
They split the populations up. Right.
Yeah, it could be a strong base.
Diffused and whatnot.
Yeah.
The courts twice have told Alabama that the districts that you have submitted don't comply with the Voting Rights Act. So we're giving you these things back. You got to create better districts. So this last round, they told the federal courts, well, we don't care what you say. We're just going to do it this way because we're going to do it this way. What Alabama is doing is what Trump has been doing. When he's tested and you have to comply, Trump says, well, the only way you can enforce the law is to bring your military. But I control the military.
Ooh.
So you can't bring anything.
Ooh.
You're a toothless, this is what Willie was talking about earlier in this program. You're a toothless tiger, right? That's what's really going on. What happens if the Supreme Court again, which they're doing right now, says to Alabama, you have to give me, in fact, I'm not even going to accept it. I'm going to have my own people draw up, congressional lines, and they're just going to give it to you. What happens if Alabama refuses to accept it and goes back to their own construction of Congress lines? What does what does the federal government do? What does the Supreme Court do? Call the U.S. Marshals? Who are they going to arrest? The entire state legislature of Alabama? What happens if they call a bluff? That's what's important here. Because if the federal government cannot enforce the Supreme Court's edict, then we don't have any control over the federal government at all. There's no law enforcement at all.
There's no control, and then a precedent has been set, and then anybody anywhere can do anything.
I just want you to understand that's what's at play here, right? This is not specious stuff. This is not little stuff. It's not penny ante stuff. If these people are allowed to get away with what they have been doing, the entire infrastructure of that makes the American democracy work will completely fall apart, and we will have nothing but boss man rule. Whoever's the strongest man in a jurisdiction, that's who rules.
Wow, that's crazy,
Right.
Mr. Hare.
So that music that you hear is them trying to tell Norm the program is over. So thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. We look forward to talking to you all on Friday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. We will see you all then.
This diagnosis was hard, but it gave us time to take control of the situation together.